People nowadays have a fucking hard on for only talking about scale and leverage, and people love these things because it implies that you do less work while making more money. However, there's a huge caveat here that nobody talks about, especially not the beginner level, which is what I want to cover, okay? So fuck all the other gurus have told you to optimize for scale. I'm telling you to stop trying to optimize for scale and leverage and do the unscalable things. As a matter of fact, the founders of Pinterest, who are Ben Silbermann, Evan Sharp, and Paul Sciarra, are known for doing the unscalable. So much so that in March 2010, when Pinterest operated their invitation-only beta 2 model, Ben, the co-founder, said that he personally wrote to the site's first 5,000 users, offering them his personal phone number and even meeting with some of them. How scalable is that? Giving your users your own personal phone number. As a matter of fact, that wasn't even the only unscalable thing they did. In the beginning, when they wanted to get their first couple users, they went into local coffee shops to talk to people, to introduce them to the idea of Pinterest, to get them on the site. They actually even went into Apple stores to go onto some of the iPads and whatnot and make their site as the default, web browser, so when people would click on the phone to go check it out and use the phone, the first thing they would see is Pinterest, in hopes that they would then memorize this website and go check it out later. He ended up getting banned from doing this, but the point is that this wasn't scalable. Like, going in these stores, talking to these people at coffee shops, isn't scalable. The same way that Jeff Bezos starting out selling books out of his own garage, that isn't scalable. The same way that Steve Jobs went knocking into in-person businesses, offering them to buy his prototype of this crazy computer thing that he was building. Those things aren't scalable. But you see this common theme time and time again, that the way somebody starts is not the way they finish, which is so true. The way you start something isn't the way you have to finish something. And nowadays, people are optimizing so much for scale and so little for value. We're trying to scale something that doesn't yet exist, and both you and I know that anything multiplied by 0 equals a big fat 0. And so there's this question, why do we focus so much on scale? Well, inherently it's because we associate scale, we ascribe that scale means less work, right? And scale means big crazy numbers, and people love talking about scale, like, oh, I'm gonna hire people to have leverage and I'm gonna optimize for scale. Why are you optimizing for scale if you don't have clients? Why are you optimizing for scale if you're making less than 10 grand a month, 100 grand a month? Heck, I'm sure some of the big dogs even say, why are you optimizing for scale if you're making less than $1 million a month, right? And I think something people need to hear is you need to stop optimizing for scale and do the unscalable. Do the thing that nobody else is willing to do. Put yourself in a group, in a market of 0. Be one of 0, as Hermosi says. There's a tweet I made today, which is that big fish have big fish advantages. They're bigger fish, right? They dominate, whatever the case is. But small fish have small fish advantages. The problem is, when you're a small fish, you only look at the big fish and go, man, I wish I was a big fish. My life would be so much easier. I'd be able to kill so many more people, eat so much more food. The problem is you forget about the advantages that you have by being a small fish. For example, I'm not the biggest YouTuber. I'm not the biggest coach consultant out there. But you know what that means I can do? It means I can talk to every single person that engages and interacts with my stuff. I reply to every single YouTube comment. Okay? I DM people personally in school and answer their questions. I hop on one-on-one calls with people inside my community for free. Is that scalable? No. And I've had people come to me time and time again and say, Stefan, like, you need to scale. You need to hire someone for this. You need to stop doing this. You need to yada, yada, yada. You know what's also really, really funny? I've had those same people who hop on those calls with me buy from me. They go, wow, I really like what you do. I really like, no one else does this kind of stuff the way you do. No one else is sending personalized looms to me in my DMs, but you do. That, I like that. That stands out. In a world in which there's so many people doing what I do, you got to take the advantages you have and stand out. And here's the thing. This isn't scalable. Like, well, you could argue that, eventually, let's say if I can't send looms, I would just get somebody else to send the looms. Like, you can always find a quote-unquote replacement for it. But the point is that people focus on scale when they don't have anything. And so right now what I'm doing isn't quote-unquote scalable. But why would I need to focus on scale? Because right now, scalability isn't even in the question. It doesn't matter right now. I'm not at the point where that's what I need to worry about. And here's the thing, is you get to that point by doing the unscalable things. You can only get to the scalable point after you do the unscalable things to get to the point where you can then scale. For example, let's say you want to scale your agency 10K a month, right? For example, you have to do the unscalable, or even 100K a month. You have to do the unscalable work in the beginning. You have to acquire the skills. You have to get your first couple clients. You have to get those first couple testimonials. And you may have to do some unscalable things like personalized looms and, more hands-on work, et cetera, before you can scale. But here's the thing is we have to get a number to multiply it, right? If we want to scale something, we can't, like anything multiplied by 0 is 0, which is why we have to get something in order to scale it. So the point I'm trying to make is stop focusing so much of your time on scale and leverage. Focus your time on doing the unscalable things that nobody else is willing to do to put yourself in a different market. Because guess what happens when somebody views you as different than everyone else? You automatically have more value because you are compared to no one, right? And when you are compared to no one, they can't say that you are expensive. They can't say that you are bad. They can't say you're overpriced or whatever the case is because you're in a market of your own. And so they can't compare you. Therefore, they can't say that you are expensive because expensive isn't like, there's no such thing as something is objectively expensive. Something is expensive compared to that, right? Like the only time we say a car is expensive is when we thought it was more than it was going to be, right? Like if cars were all selling for $1 million and then there's a car for $500,000, you wouldn't say that car is expensive because objectively, compared to the other cars, it would be cheap as a matter of fact. But right now, if I told you, hey man, I got a normal car, it's a Toyota Corolla for whatever the case is, 500 grand, you'd be like, dude, that's so expensive, you're crazy. Once again, comparison. So, I make this video to say, stop focusing on scale. I know there's plenty of big people out there saying scale. Fuck that bullshit. Fuck your scale, fuck your team, fuck your leverage. I don't give a shit about any of that. Okay? Because I give a shit about your success. And it just so happens to be that in the beginning, the thing that matters and the thing that works is not the scalable things. Because, well, they're not that valuable. Typically speaking, people try and make products that can scale. They try and productize their service, which is phenomenal. I'm all for that. Except how are you productizing a service that you've never ran for somebody before? The only reason you're trying to productize your service is so that you can do less work for your clients. When you have no clients. It doesn't, like, when you logically think about this, it doesn't make any sense. So, I urge you to take a look back at what you're doing and ask yourself, what the fuck am I doing? Like, am I trying to optimize for scale when I have nothing? And maybe if that's the case, I urge you to do the unscalable things. Because guess what? You know what's really, really cool? Typically speaking, the unscalable things are the things that the big fish can't do. And so it makes you completely stand out from these guys. And it actually allows you to sign more clients faster, make more money quicker because you do the things nobody else is willing to do. And typically speaking, when you do something that nobody else is willing to do, you get paid pretty good for it. That's why those guys, there's a job where it's like, it's changing this light bulb. There's this one light bulb that's like at the top of this, crane that takes like 8 hours to go climb, right? And the person that does that gets paid like $250K a year, $250K a light bulb change. He works 2 times a year and he gets paid that much. Why? Because nobody's willing to risk their life to climb all the way up there, even in shitty weather, just to change a light bulb, right? So once again, people get paid in accordance to the side of the problem they solve. And it just so happens that when you do something nobody else is willing to do, you typically get paid pretty good for it. So yeah, maybe rethink your thing about scale. Peace.